There was once a woman who was very poor, and for many years her only wish was to have a baby. One day she met an old witch, and she told her about this wish.
"Oh, that's no problem," said the witch. "Plant this small seed I'll give you and see what happens."
Thanking the witch, the woman hurried home and planted the seed. After a little while, a most beautiful flower bud grew, and the woman was so excited that she kissed its lovely purple petals. With that, the bud burst open into a tulip, and there, sitting right in the centre of the flower, was a tiny little girl, no bigger than your thumb. And that's how Thumbelina came to be born. At night, she slept in a walnut shell, with flower petals as a mattress, and during the day she played on the table. The woman had put a plate of water with a big tulip petal floating on the top, and Thumbelina would go sailing in this. Everything was very happy, until one night an ugly toad jumped in the window and right onto the table where Thumbelina was fast asleep. The horrid old toad decided Thumbelina would make a lovely wife for her son, and she picked up the walnut shell, hopped back through the window with it, and down to the stream at the bottom of the garden. Ugh! It was all damp and muddy by the stream. And this was where the toad lived with her son. He was ugly too.
"Croak, croak,"
he said when he saw the pretty little girl.
"If we put her on a big lily leaf out on the stream,"
said the toad,
"then she can't run away, and we can go and get the front room under the mud ready for your new home."
Growing in the middle of the stream were many water lilies, with those broad green leaves which seemed to float on the water. The leaf furthest out, which also happened to be the biggest, was the one they swam out to. Poor Thumbelina, when she woke up the next morning and saw where she was. "Oh dear, oh dear," she cried quietly. She didn't want to live with the nasty old toad or marry her ugly son. The toad took the pretty little bed away and left Thumbelina on the green leaf all by herself. The little fishes swimming about had popped their heads up and seen the pretty little girl, and they realized what was happening, so they quickly nibbled through the stalk of the leaf, and it floated off down the stream. A white butterfly settled on the leaf beside her, and so Thumbelina tied one end of her sash to the butterfly and the other end to the leaf, and they floated along faster than ever. At last the leaf came to rest on the bank, and Thumbelina found herself at the edge of a big wood. All that summer Thumbelina lived by herself. She plaited a bed from blades of grass, and hung it up under a big leaf which helped keep the rain off. She ate honey from the flowers and drank dew from the flower petals. Summer and autumn passed. Then came winter and the snow. Every snowflake that fell on Thumbelina was like a whole spoonful to us, for remember she was no bigger than your thumb. It was cold, very cold, and Thumbelina decided she'd better look for a new home, so she set off and walked away through the big wood. In time, she came to the door of a little house where a field mouse lived all snug and warm. Poor Thumbelina stood at the doorway, shivering all over.
"Please, may I have something to eat? I'm so hungry."
"Oh, you poor little thing," said the field mouse. "Come in and have a meal with me." Later on, because she had taken a liking to Thumbelina, she said, "Would you like to stay with me? Help me keep the house clean and tell me stories?" So Thumbelina did stay, and she felt very much at home. Each day they would go out walking, and then in the evening they'd sit by the fire, and Thumbelina would tell the field mouse stories, or other times she would sing. Yes, it was all very cosy. One day, when they were out walking, Thumbelina found a big bird. It was a swallow, and it looked as if it was dead. This worried her, because she remembered last summer, when all the trees were green and the sun shone warmly, how much she had enjoyed the singing of the swallows. So she made a blanket from hay and covered the bird with it.
"Goodbye, Big Bird, and thank you for your lovely singing last summer,"
At that moment, Thumbelina was sure she felt the bird move, and she realized it wasn't dead, but sick and cold. For the next few weeks, Thumbelina nursed the bird, and very soon it was fit and healthy again. As soon as spring came, it was time for the swallow to move on. "I shall be flying to the warm countries. Why don't you come with me?" the swallow said. "You can sit on my back and tie your sash around me. Oh, do come with me, Thumbelina." The swallow had grown fond of Thumbelina and didn't want to be parted from her.
"Very well, I'll come with you,"
she said, and she climbed onto the bird's back, tied her sash to one of the strongest feathers, and off they flew into the air, across the sea, high up over the mountains where there's snow all the time. On and on they flew, until they came to the warm countries. There were green trees all around, some trees with oranges growing on them, others with lemons. There were pretty flowers dotted everywhere, and there by a blue lake stood a lovely old palace with grapevines growing up the walls. Right at the top of these vines were some swallows' nests, and this was where the swallow carrying Thumbelina lived. "This is my house," the swallow said, "but you may choose your own." Thumbelina looked around and saw some lovely big white flowers growing in a broken pillar down on the ground. The swallow flew her down and put her off onto one of the petals. What a surprise Thumbelina got when she saw a little man sitting in the centre of the flower. He was no bigger than Thumbelina.
"I say, isn't he handsome?"
she said to the swallow. Actually, a little man or woman lived in every flower, but he was king of all. The prince was a little frightened of the swallow because it seemed so big to him. When he saw Thumbelina, he thought she was the prettiest girl he had ever seen. Taking his crown off his head and putting it on hers, he asked her her name.
"I'm Thumbelina,"
she replied. The prince then asked her if she would marry him and help him look after all the flowers in the lovely warm country. Thumbelina said yes to the handsome prince, and there was great rejoicing. The swallow sat up in his nest and sang to them all, and everyone was happy.